Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraya. Nastapraistu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatideshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Prasadena Tadrupa Sivanirnayam Balopi Kurute Shastram Visvaraja Vilasam Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaham Dadati Swapadantikam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangulam Gayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurundinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Okay, welcome back to devotees to your study of the beautiful Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm happy to be with you this morning, and we're going to be inaugurating the fourth canto, which is in general a very exciting narrative, but this first chapter isn't. The first chapter is one of the classic names chapters, the genealogies that are compulsory in any Purana. There's a need to establish a certain credential to be considered Vedic literature. And so the Bhagavatam, as that, follows certain protocols. Although it is the Amala Purana, as we hear, it is the topmost expression of these Puranas, and it's for the entrance into Shuddha Sattva. It's not for any of the other concerns for people in the other gunas. Still, there's a certain formality that is addressed, and Shukadev obliges within that to give these genealogies at times. So in fact, the chapter is titled Genealogical Table of the Daughters of Manu. So we'll read the verse, and then Srila Prabhupada gives a very sweet, intimate purport. So we'll enjoy the purport today. And we'll touch a little bit on this idea of the genealogies and what to do when you encounter these chapters elsewhere in the Bhagavatam, how to find some connection to them. We just did a study of this. I have a group on Wednesday nights that I do a Bhagavatam study with, and we're in the fourth canto. So we just came to this chapter 10 weeks ago or so. So we had some nice churning about that, and hopefully I can share a little bit of what we came to there with you all and hear from you as well. What is feeling exciting and moving you at the beginning of this conversation of the fourth canto between Maitreya and Vidura. So we'll chant the text, and is it? Oh, it's up there. Okay, great. Maitreya uvacha manostu sata rupayam tishra kanyascha jhangnire akutir devahutischa prasutir iti vishruttaha Maitreya uvacha manostu sata rupayam tisra kanyascha jhangnire akutir devahutischa prasutir iti vishruttaha. Anyone would like to chant? Maitreya uvacha manostu satarupayam tisra kanyascha jhagnire akutir devahutischa prasutir iti vishruttaha. Maitreya uvacha manostu satarupayam tisra kanyascha jhagnire akutir devahutischa Prasutir iti vishuttaha. Maitreya uvacha. The great sage Maitreya said, Manu tu of Swayambhuva Manu, Satarupayam, in his wife Satarupa. Tisra, 3. Kanyacha, daughters also. Jagnire, gave birth. Akuti, named Akuti. Devahuti, named Devahuti. Cha, also. Prashuti, named Prashuti. Iti, thus. Vishruta, well known. Translation and purport by His Divine Loving Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Sri Maitreya said, Swayambhuva Manu begot 3 daughters in his wife Satarupa, and their names were Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti. Srila Prabhupada's purport. First of all, let us offer our respectful obeisances unto our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad, Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki, by whose order I am engaged in this Herculean task of writing commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam, as the Bhaktivedanta purports. This is interesting how Srila Prabhupada has refined his spiritual master's instruction. I am following my spiritual master's instruction, his Herculean order, by translating this Srimad Bhagavatam. But we never hear that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta specifically told Srila Prabhupada to translate the Bhagavatam. Instead, what is the general instruction we hear? Yeah, and translate books. And thank God Prabhupada didn't stop at book or books generally, but he remained relentless in translating. And as I think we've all seen this harrowing video of Jayadvaita Maharaj standing over Srila Prabhupada with a voice recorder, Prabhupada lying on his bed in Vrindavan and giving the final purports to the 10th canto, chapter 13, Lord Brahma's prayers. Prabhupada is still translating. Literally moments before he'll depart, his body completely emaciated. The doctor, the Vaidya who was seeing Prabhupada at the time, that anybody else would have died from the pain. Never mind the bodily dysfunction. The pain that Prabhupada would have been in at that time, because he essentially had untreated diabetes. And so his body was eating itself from the inside. And that's why he looks so emaciated in those videos. He's just a skeleton. And his skin has been pulled over his frame. And so the padding that's usually there between the nerves and the bone and everything else is gone. So his nerves are just being slowly raked over his skeleton. Anyone else would have died from the pain. Never mind the dysfunction in the body. And somehow Prabhupada remained in that condition for a month and a half, translating his Bhaktivedanta purports. This Herculean task of my spiritual master, he has given me. And yet, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta didn't tell Prabhupada, translate the Bhagavatam. He didn't tell our Srila Prabhupada, go to New York. Srila Prabhupada took the general indications of his spiritual master and then refined them based on his own intuition, based on his own sense of purpose, his own relationship with Krishna, his understanding of what his spiritual master would want. My Gurudev sent devotees to London, but my idea is to go to New York. Now, hold on, Prabhupada, we don't speculate. We don't have our ideas. We just have Gurudev's ideas. But Srila Prabhupada himself is showing the need of the disciple to fill in, to bring their own sense of purpose, to bring their own understanding to the seva of the spiritual master. Otherwise, we just end up sycophants. We just end up third-class followers. We have to be told what to do, where to do, how to do at every moment. And if the spiritual master is not there to tell us, then we collapse into a confused pile and don't know how to practice Krishna consciousness. Mother Yamuna was asked, I think it might have been Juhu. But Mother Yamuna was in so many places that Krishna consciousness was beginning and starting. So one of these places in which she was part of establishing the first temple, she was in charge of painting Prabhupada's room. And so she had the opportunity to ask Prabhupada, What color do you want your room? And she was asking 2, 3, 4, 5 different ways, trying to get Prabhupada to tell, what color should the room be? And at one point, Prabhupada just strikes his cane on the ground and he said, "It is your service. You decide." Not that the spiritual, okay, wear this dhoti today and put on these bangles and get gas from this gas station. There's a lot to fill in our life in Krishna consciousness. And if we have this kind of shallow idea of living by the order of the spiritual master means being like prema robots of sorts, then we're going to miss the opportunity. We're going to miss the real chance at service. So Prabhupada has himself taken this burden of translating the Srimad Bhagavatam, and not just any old translation. There are many other people who say their Srimad Bhagavatam is one copy, one book. It's just a narrative, no verses, no Sanskrit, no Devanagari, just the narrative translation. You can go to libraries all over the US, all over Europe, and you'll find such translations from scholars. Srila Prabhupada wanted his Bhagavatam in 60 volumes. Is that coming from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, or is that coming from Prabhupada's heart to please Srila Bhaktisiddhanta? Okay, my spiritual master has given me this order. Let me do it in the nicest way possible. Let me fulfill this in a grand way. And what does it mean to translate books in our Gaudiya Vaishnava community? What's the book to translate if we're going to translate any book? Srimad Bhagavatam. Because this is the, Srila, thank you. Srila Jiva Goswami says that our Shraddha, our faith, if it's mature, if it's going to be able to grow into prem fall, if it's going to really give the fruit of prem, our Shraddha has to be rooted in Shastriya Shraddha. Otherwise, Lokika Shraddha, which is this general, oh, the devotees sing sweet kirtan and the food tastes nice and the temple reminds me of India, and whatever feelings we have that we like that gets us to come, it's nice that we're coming, but one day the temple won't look so nice and the food won't taste so good and the person that sings sweetly isn't singing today. Then the person that tells the funny jokes during the class that isn't talking. And then where does your faith go? It goes out the door along with those circumstantial things, those preferences based on mostly your modes of material nature. I like this, I don't like that. Jiva Goswami says our Shraddha, rather, our faith has to become rooted in Shastra. That is the unchanging element, the foundation of any spiritual community, in particular our Gaudiya community. The bedrock in which we all stand on is agreement that the Srimad Bhagavatam is it. That is the hallmark and benchmark for our culture. And we make all other arrangements and decisions around how the Bhagavatam is presenting the ideal way to approach our relationship with God. So Srila Prabhupada understood this, and aboard his prayers to on the Jaladuta, when he was coming to America, he's writing this beautiful poem, make me dance, make me dance, make me dance as you like. In our early days, Krishna House, when we were fired up, as they say, our morning program consisted of, among other things, reciting Markine Bhagavat Dharma, Prabhupada's poem that he wrote in Bengali. We would recite the Bengali and the English every morning at the old Krishna House. It took an extra 7 minutes, but it felt very exciting to remind ourselves of this very vulnerable place that Srila Prabhupada was in. I did not know whether to turn left or right. He's coming to New York on his own, alone. I did not know. And we should take him at face value. We should accept Prabhupada's struggle. We should appreciate the darkness that Krishna had him in, because it comes to prove the faith of the real devotee. Not that it's a kind of laid out already. They get some secret cheat code book that none of the rest of us have access to, and they don't have to have worry. They don't have to have concern. They don't have to have anxiety in their endeavors. Or they have more anxiety than we do. They have more concern than we do. They have more trepidation than we do, because they want so badly that their Guru Janas are honored. They want so badly that Krishna is pleased. And I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if what I'm doing will please them, but I have to try anyway. This is the tension of prema. In Kaviraj Goswami and Chaitanya Charitamrita, he'll call it again and again, Vish Amrit. Prema is Vish Amrit. What is, pundits among us, what is Vish Amrit? Poison nectar. Yeah. Snow rain. You don't have, it's snow or it's rain. In Michigan, sometimes we get this snow rain. It's odd. It's one or the other. How can it be both poison and nectar? This pain of wanting to serve and feeling inadequate, but being helpless to try anyway, because that is your beloved. So you have, your existence is only trying to serve them, but they deserve more than you can give. But let me try anyway. This is the constant tension and anxiety of the Premi Bhakta. So Prabhupada is saying, this Herculean task that my spiritual master has put on my head, but nobody told him to translate the Bhagavatam specifically. He just intuitively understood this is what we have to do, because the Bhagavatam is the Bhagavatam for us. Srila Jiva Goswami has given the Sundarbhas as the authoritative summary of all of the other 6 Goswamis' activities and Mahaprabhu's expressions, and all centered around the Bhagavatam. The Sundarbhas are the elaborate explanation of the Srimad Bhagavatam from a philosophical perspective, because the Bhagavatam doesn't follow a logical narrative, actually. It doesn't follow a rational presentation of the philosophy, so then it can get a little confusing. So Jiva Goswami goes through in the Sundarbhas and lays out every single point, relating it back to the Bhagavatam, because that is what will keep the Gaudiya community together. So on his prayers, or in these prayers, Markandeya Bhagavat Dharma, Prabhupada is saying these memorable things that, please Krishna, make me dance. You will make me a success or a failure as you like. Only by your mercy will my words be understood. All these beautiful expressions of his humility, along with those Bengali prayers, he sandwiches in that Markandeya Bhagavat Dharma 5 verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. And he says, this is Krishna consciousness. First canto, chapter 2, text 17 through 21, which each morning we recite as Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhaktya Bhagavati Naishtiki Bhagavat Tattva Vijnana Mukta Sangasya Jayate. These 5 verses, Prabhupada said, this is Krishna consciousness. Sutta Goswami speaking to the sages at Naimisharanya, giving the whole answer first. The whole rest of the Bhagavatam, as spoken by Sutta Goswami, which is a recapitulation of Shukadev's conversation with Parikshit, the whole expression of Sutta Goswami is summarized in that 2nd chapter. The rest of the Bhagavatam, as he narrates it, is just a summary of that 2nd chapter of the 1st canto. And those 5 verses within the 2nd chapter, Prabhupada says, this is Krishna consciousness, plain and simple. How important the Bhagavatam is, and how Prabhupada was empowered to give it to us, because he felt this is the order of my spiritual master. But then again, paradoxically, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta never told him specifically, and Bhaktisiddhanta never gave himself a commentary on Bhagavatam. And yet Prabhupada intuitively understood this is needed in the Western world. Why did Bhaktisiddhanta not give? Because Srila Vishwanath already gave. Because Srila Sridhar already gave. Srila Jiva Goswami, Srila Sanatana Goswami, they already have their tikas on the Bhagavatam. So in the Indian world, we don't need more tikas. But in the Western world, we have 0 that have the Bhaktivedanta purport inside. And so that was Prabhupada's first intuition, even back in Delhi. That 1st canto was written in Delhi and Vrindavan, not in America. By his grace, we have finished 3 cantos already. And we are just trying to begin the 4th canto. By his divine grace, let us offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Chaitanya, who began the Krishna consciousness movement of Bhagavat Dharma 500 years ago. And through his grace, let us offer our obeisances to the 6 Goswamis. And then let us offer our obeisances to Radha and Krishna, the spiritual couple who enjoy eternally in Vrindavan with their cowherd boys and damsels in Braj Bhumi. Let us also offer our respectful obeisances to all the devotees and eternal servitors of the Supreme Lord. A very heartfelt, sweet expression from Prabhupada in the beginning of this purport to begin the 4th canto. Srila Prabhupada didn't know whether he would go right or left when he stepped off the Jaladuta, and he didn't know whether he would ever get to translate another page of the Srimad Bhagavatam. He came with his 1st canto, and in several anecdotes, Prabhupada said, I put everything required philosophically for going back to Godhead, everything required, I put in this 1st canto. Why did he take so much trouble to do that? He had no idea Will I live long enough? Will it be received? Will I have funding? Will I have facility? And no idea. So let me pack it all in here. Let me talk about Dhruva. Let me talk about Prahlad. Let me talk about Gajendra in the first canto, my purports. So you go through the first canto and it's like reading the rest of the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada is bringing out all the other important leelas, important narratives, important philosophical conclusions there in his purports, taking time to speak about those devotees that we find in 8th canto, 7th canto, 4th canto, there in the first canto, because he had no idea. So here he is having a moment of gratitude and humility. Wow, here we are in the 4th canto. We had no idea we'd get this far. At least we've gotten this far, only by the grace of Sri Guru and Gauranga. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. In this 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there are 31 chapters, and all these chapters describe the secondary creation by Brahma and the Manus. The Supreme Lord himself does the real creation by agitating his material energy, and then, by his order, Brahma, the first living creature in the universe, attempts to create the different planetary systems and their inhabitants, expanding the population through his progeny, like Manu, and other progenitors of living entities, who work perpetually under the order of the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada's words here, Lord Brahma attempts to create the different planetary systems. It's a sweet phrasing, because if we're reading carefully, we see Lord Brahma has lots of problems. One darshan, one vision of the Srimad Bhagavatam is as a narration of the challenges of Lord Brahma to live out a healthy, happy, Krishna-conscious life. And each of us have our challenges in doing the same, don't we? We have our challenges in living out a healthy, happy, Krishna-conscious life. There's all kinds of problems that come in, all kinds of people that don't live up to the expectations we have, all kinds of ways we fail the expectations of others. Right? Back and forth, up and down, it's going on all the time. And there's some solace we can take when we see that Lord Brahma is no different. He faces the same challenges. Children that don't listen, desires that agitate and create problems for other people, offenses, leadership that makes mistakes and doesn't admit it and carries on pretending like nothing happened. All the things that we think are exclusive to Kali Yuga are happening from day one of the creation. And there's a way we can find solace there. Actually, our problems are not just our problems. They're just the problems of the material energy, always going on. Never is there a moment when these issues don't come up in some way, somewhere, somehow. And instead of getting so wrapped up in how special and unique the challenges I face are, we can take solace that actually even great souls like Lord Brahma have to deal with things like this. So let me find some composure in the narratives of how they face them. The beginning of the universe, Lord Brahma's been reassured by Krishna, I promise it will all go great. Lord Brahma's praying, prayers for creative energy, chapter 9, 3rd canto, which you all studied, obviously not too far in the recent past. Lord Brahma's praying, I don't want to get involved with creation. That's big problems. Lots of pride, lots of envy, lots of entanglements going to happen. So my Lord, I'm worried. And Vishnu says, don't worry, it'll all be fine. And then day one, Lord goes, okay, thank you, my Lord, I'm reassured. Then day one, it's not fine. The 4 Kumaras come, and Lord Brahma said, okay, my dear sons, we've got work to do. The Lord has made this direct order, right? Imagine you're empowered by the direct order of God. The Lord has made this direct order. You're my sons, now you go and do these things. You go help me bring forth the creation. And what do they say? No thanks, Dad. Don't want it. And we're protected by Shastra. We don't have to. Even you have the order of the Lord on your side. But Vedaischa Sarvera Eva Vedyo Vedantikrit Vedavat Eva Chaham. So do we. The order of the Lord also says we don't have to follow through on this because as individuals, we get to pick our ashram. And you see this coming up. Bhishma is told, marry her. He says, no thanks. You can fight your guru physically for choice of ashram. So the four Kumaras say, no thanks. And Lord Brahma's furious. We've all been there, right? We've been told by some senior devotee, you're empowered. You're in charge of Sunday feast serve out. And so then Shaligram Prabhu, okay, now everyone has to listen so that the Sunday feast serve out goes very well. And then everyone else has a different idea of how it should go. And no one really cares that so-and-so told you some years ago that you should be doing it this way because I think I should be doing it this way. So Lord Brahma's immediately caught off guard. He becomes upset. Rudradev, Lord Shiva's, erupts from his forehead. Literally his head cracks open. He's so mad. And Rudradev comes out, and Rudradev is he's in the opposite mood. The Kumaras, they don't want to do anything. And Rudradev says, I'm ready. Put me in, coach. He's Haribol Bhakta, truly fired up. The original fired up Bhakta is so fired up, burns everyone, burns everything. Maybe you all have seen that also here at Farmington Hills ISKCON Temple. We've learned it at the Harmony Collective over the years, right? Service needs to be done. There's lots to do and not enough to do it. And then some nice soul comes along and seems like they want to do everything. And everyone's like, Jai, let them do everything. And then a week later, everyone's trying to figure out, how do we undo everything they've done? Right? Because enthusiasm is one thing, but competency is another. Capacity is another. And mature devotees, we learn this. We learn that there's ratios of these things, and enthusiasm is one important element, but capacity, awareness, sensitivity, these things are also required in a harmonious community. So Rudradevi's literally fired up. Haribol Bhakta just joined the temple. And Lord Brahma says, okay, we need your service is to stay in that corner and don't touch anything. You just stay there for some time and we'll invite you back when we need you. When we need everything to fall apart, we'll call you back. Because Lord Rudra has a certain capacity, mostly for destruction. And so it wasn't time to destroy, it was time to create. So you go, just wait patiently there. So Lord Brahma is having problems with the creation. Finally, Manu comes. And this is what I call the prodigy problem. Leaders are all the time waiting for someone like Manu to show up. Capable, qualified, surrendered, ready, willing. Please, Guruji, instruct me. This was Manu's request. Please, Lord Brahma, Father, Pitaji, instruct me. And now Lord Brahma realized, I don't actually know how to engage you. The responsibility of engaging someone is actually a very heavy weight. To know how to use their capacities and where to use them, and so that both the project and the thing trying to get done and the person themselves will all be uplifted. It's a great science. And this very capable, qualified person, Manu, comes, and Lord Brahma realizes, I have no place to put you. And he's sitting and wondering and praying and hoping and feeling embarrassed, feeling insufficient. I had this, my first sons wouldn't listen to me. My second son is too excited. My third son is too qualified. I'm a useless creator. And in this moroseness, Lord Varaha comes from his nostril and begins to expand and expand and expand and incarnates to come rescue Lord Brahma only days after he told him, don't worry, everything's going to go fine. So Prabhupada has used this very clever phrasing in the purport. Lord Brahma attempts to create the different planetary systems. He's attempting, but even Lord Brahma's attempt is ultimately going to fall short without grace, which comes so many times over. Lord Varaha, Kormadev, there's Simhadev. So many times over, the Lord is incarnating to support Lord Brahma's attempts. And this narrative of the Bhagavatam, this vision that the Bhagavatam is Krishna reciprocating with Lord Brahma's attempts, it can be uplifting for ourselves if we recognize our own attempts. We're also making attempts. We also have our little universe of seva, whatever it might be. We have our little kshetra that we're involved in, and we can see, if we're honest, our attempts are also just that. They're just attempts, but they're also falling short. And how is Krishna incarnating for us? How is Krishna showing up in our little universe to save the day? Now, he may not be showing up as Varahadev, but Krishna comes nonetheless, doesn't he? If we're paying attention, we notice how Krishna sends his agents, sends himself in so many different ways to show, I'm there. I see your attempt and I honor your attempt. I'm reading Miracle on 22nd Avenue, Mukunda Maharaj. And it's a beautiful book. My wife, Vrindavani, this is her spiritual master. So I'm wanting to feel a little closer to him for that reason. His picture is on our altar, so we want to know something about this person. But also, he has such a refreshing perspective on the early days. We have this idea that, it's been romanticized now. Prabhupada is who he is. So we have this, he's just a superhero, like going around, zapping everybody with Krishna consciousness, and making everyone fall at his feet and surrender their life. But you can see in the life of Mukunda Maharaj and others, through his narration, it took time for that sense of wholehearted surrender to develop from Mukunda Maharaj towards Srila Prabhupada. He was just a kind of admirer for many months. And then circumstances were as they were, and he felt, okay, let me help this old gentleman who's clearly out of place here in New York City. And through that seva, and through the time, and through the commitment growing gradually, he became sold out, fully surrendered. But it wasn't overnight. It wasn't even months. It was years. So eventually this relationship of dedication develops, and he starts New York, and then he starts San Francisco, and then he goes and starts London. So literally, like all of the first yatras, Mukunda Maharaj was there at the intimate beginnings. So it's a wonderful book. If you haven't read it, I recommend. And there's the one narration about the rent not being able to be paid at the San Francisco temple. And what do we do? Do we go get jobs? Do we, go sell some drugs for a week? Like, to go do whatever we used to do to make money, which isn't exactly Krishna conscious, but anyway, it's for Krishna, so something. And then Shamsundar Prabhu remembers, Swamiji said, if you just chant, if you just surrender to the holy name, right? Yuga Dharma, then Golokar Premadam, Harinam Sankirtan, everything you need will just fall from the sky. And literally that was their experience. They walk out to go do Harinam and money is raining from the sky. Now, never mind that it wasn't the Devatas raining money. It was the drug dealers who lived above them that were being raided by the police and this and that. Some circumstance, some pretext was there. And some mundane minded person will say, oh, this isn't God. This is just your luck. But with a little faith, we can appreciate Krishna's, in the form of those police, in the form of those drug dealers, Krishna's sending. Krishna's incarnating to support their attempts. So we're welcoming everybody to have this vision of your own life. That it's not the material energy throwing up obstacles and then a little bit of luck once in a while. It's Krishna honoring your attempts, just like he does for Lord Brahma, so he does for you. In your sphere of creation, in your sphere of activity, which we all have. That's the point of hearing about Brahma and kings and universal administrators, manus, because on a macro level, they give lessons for our little micro existence. They put it in perspective. We're not doing all they're doing, but we're doing something. And to learn to take guidance from the way the Lord reciprocates with them. That is one darshan of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada continues. Excuse me. In the first chapters of this fourth canto, there are descriptions of the three daughters of Swayambhuva Manu and their descendants. The next 6 chapters describe the sacrifice performed by King Daksha and how it was spoiled Thereafter, the activities of Maharaj Dhruva are described in 5 chapters. Then in 11 chapters, the activities of King Prithu are described. And in the next 8 chapters are devoted to the activities of the Pracheta kings. As described in the first verse of this chapter, Swayambhuva Manu had 3 daughters named Akuti, Devahuti, and Prashuti. Of these 3 daughters, one daughter, Devahuti, has already been described, along with her husband, Kardama Muni, and her son, Kapila Muni. In this chapter, the descendants of the first daughter, Akuti, will specifically be described. Swayambhuva Manu was the son of Brahma. Brahma had many other sons, but Manu's name is specifically mentioned first because he was a great devotee of the Lord. In this verse, there is also the word cha, indicating that besides the 3 daughters mentioned, Swayambhuva Manu also had 2 sons. What time are we stopping, devotees? 9?
9:15.
9:15? Okay, and that is including questions and such also? Okay, so we'll just say a little more, and then we'll open it up for reflections and comments. So why are we speaking about Manus? Right? Bhagavatam is supposed to be about Krishna. So why are we hearing about genealogies of Manus? To answer that in the specific narrative at present, we have to go back to questions that Vidura posed way back at the beginning of the 3rd canto. Vidura was having a moment of doubt. He was on pilgrimage for years now because he had left the kingdom of the Kurus after being insulted by Duryodhana. Duryodhana had basically called him a bastard in polite assembly. And we're used to hearing these ugly words more so today. But at that time, to such a senior, in a public court also, not even in private, Vidura knew this is it. These guys are hopeless. They're hell-bent on going to hell. I'm not going to save them. I'll even get pulled down if I stick around. I have to leave. So he left to go towards Krishna. The best way to run away from Maya is to go towards Krishna. So he went on pilgrimage, and he's walking and he's praying and he's absorbing and he's processing. And then finally he comes to Maitreya after meeting Uddhava for a moment, and Uddhava saying, Maitreya is there, so you meet with him, because Uddhava himself was too much emotionally distressed that Krishna was leaving and he was going to Bhadrak ashram. That's a whole narrative. So Vidura and Maitreya begin to speak. And the pleasantries are how things start. Offering obeisances, offering a little glorification, some tears in the eyes, some bright and genuine smile. Vidura knows who Maitreya is. Maitreya knows who Vidura is. Personal associate of the Lord, great sage and yogi. So it's like LeBron James meets, George Clooney. 2 very famous, very capable people. Maybe they've never crossed paths, but okay, we know a lot about each other. We know each other's great work. So they begin their discussions, and formality and sweet and nice. And then all of a sudden, Vidura explodes. He begins to release all of the frustration, all of the anxiety, all of the disappointment, the feelings of betrayal that he had carried with him since that day in the Kuru court. And he vomits it out at Maitreya. In modern terms, he starts saying, how can there be a God if bad things happen to good people? We've all heard this question. And it's the question that comes back again and again. For a devotee, how can hard things happen? How can bad things happen? How can people mistreat me like this? How can misfortune befall someone like myself who's dedicated so much to the Lord? And Prabhupada says there, in his translation of Shukadev's words, Maitreya was astonished by Vidura's questioning. He was taken aback, like, whoa, I didn't expect that from Vidura. Somebody so composed, so cultured, so wise, a personal associate of Krishna. Such angst inside of him. Maitreya was, wow, taken aback, astonished. So So Vidura has released these frustrations, and he puts it a little more philosophically. How, if the living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme, which is Satchidananda, how can they become covered over by the inferior Prakriti nature? It sounds philosophical. That's why we might miss it. If we're not reading carefully, we might miss. This is not elegant philosophical discussion. This is a frustrated Vidura. So the astonished Maitreya replies with the age-old advice. What is the advice to give anybody who comes to you with anxiety? Huh? Patience, okay. Relax. You guys haven't been in the Hare Krishna movement long enough. What is the advice? Anybody has any problem? Prabhuji, just chant. Maitreya said, you're not the body, chant Hare Krishna. 2 verses, 2 pieces of advice. You're not the body, chant Hare Krishna. Now Nandaniketan Prabhu's laughing because he's probably heard and given this advice before, both. Is it very effective? Usually for ourselves, where we are in our Krishna consciousness, this advice is not recommended. It's recommended only after a lot of gentle massage and care. First, you have to really give space for people to get it out and let them know that they're accepted, they're cared for, they're appreciated, even if in this period of their life, things are going to be hard and things aren't going to look the nice, polished way that we all think they're supposed to look when we first come to Krishna consciousness. The dhoti might be a little wrinkled for the next few months. Tilak might be a little smudged for the next few months or years. Or okay, it's okay. And also don't forget, you're not the body, chant Hare Krishna. You're not the first person with these problems. You won't be the last person. And the solution is your relationship with God. Don't forget, even though you're going through this yourself personally and it hurts and it's difficult and that's fine, you have to feel that. But don't forget. This takes a lot of sensitivity, a lot of trust built up. But between 2 sages, Maitreya could just say it on the face. Hey, you're not the body, chant Hare Krishna. He says it in a very beautiful, poetic way. He says, as a person may see the reflection of the moon on the water and see the ripples on the water and think that the moon is similarly disturbed, so the living entity, the soul, the Atma, identifying with the body and the modes of nature connected to the body, the ripples of the modes of material nature, the living entity similarly identifies their body as the self, just as a person may foolishly identify the reflection of the moon with the moon. But this is not wise. A person who's wise knows that the moon is undisturbed, although the reflection of the moon on the water seems disturbed. That's nice poetry. And then in the second verse, he says, the name, fame, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord are transcendent and an eternal access point for the living entity to experience their own eternal self. Don't forget these things. And Vidura says, thanks. Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you for reminding me. I lost my composure. I became frustrated. I was bewildered and disappointed and so many other things from this misbehavior of these people, this mistreatment of me. Thank you for reminding me what is true. And then he asks those same questions he asked in frustration. Now he asks them with composure. Raise your hand if you've ever asked, why is Krishna doing this to me? Why? Why? Me? How can he do it to me? But if you just ask, why is Krishna doing this to me? Same question, different tone. Instead of why, with indignation, you ask, why? With genuine inquiry, then an answer can come. Then relief to the heart. All the hard thing, it doesn't make the hard thing go away. It just helps you accept it in context of the plan of the Lord. It doesn't mean that God doesn't love me. It doesn't mean the devotees have given me up. It doesn't mean I don't have some seva anymore. Why is Krishna doing this to me right now? Let me understand so I can carry myself forward in a composed and faithful way. So Vidura asks all those frustrated questions, but in an elegant and composed way, with faith now. Yes, there is a real answer. The answer ultimately is that God loves us, and I want to understand the details of his love by understanding why has he made the creation the way he's made it. How do the cycles of the manus work? Who administrates the material energy? Who's in charge of all these living entities? How do they get connected here, and how can they get out? He asked these 20 or so questions. And so Maitreya is obliging with the details of the creation. If I go inside each of your homes, there'll be some details there. Bills on the table, pictures on the wall, furniture arranged a certain way, artwork, landscaping. Those homes, they are not you, but they tell me something about you. Oh, they like cricket. Oh, they like this kind of music. Oh, they worship these deities. They enjoy this kind of food. It tells me something about who you are. It doesn't tell me everything, but I can learn something about who you are by going in each of your homes. In the same way, we study the Jagat, we study the creation, because this is a room in Krishna's house. How has he decorated? What furniture has he chosen? What people has he invited to the party? It doesn't tell us everything about who Krishna is, but it tells us something about who Krishna is. And so Maitreya is obliging Vidura's inquiry about that creation in order to give insight and detail ultimately to who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we'll stop there, devotees, and we'll see if there's any reflections or comments. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you so much for a very fabulous presentation. Amazingly connecting the question towards the end about matrimony and how this is answered. And why we need to understand the whole children and all that stuff. I had two questions. I'll start with one. Time permits, I'll ask the other one.
Sure.
One is towards the end, or towards the middle. When you mentioned about Brahmaji that Krishna is giving him an order, now you go and do the creation. If we see Brahmaji, in our term we call it as his game is fixed. He is just coming and following the instruction of the Lord, but he is the associate of the Lord. So whatever is given, he is so close to Lord. If we think for ourselves, when we follow the instruction of Shastras, that's not, our game is not fixed. We have to struggle so hard because we have to make it. And there is a difference between the job and the life. The job is part of life, but it's not life. So when we come in bhakti, we understand after things happen in our life, saying that I have to make it.
Yeah.
So there is a struggle, which is same like Brahmaji, or maybe much smaller, I would say.
Smaller scale.
Yeah, huge, but
that's the point. But it feels as important.
Yes.
Yes.
Or feel that, I'm going through the as big misery what Brahmaji is going through.
Yeah.
How do we make sure we remember that this path is hopeful? There is going to be Krishna's hand coming.
Yeah.
But then when we connect with Brahmaji, forget about me. What is the point? What we are talking about. So that's the question I have: is how can I be always focused, remembering, yes, my game is not fixed, but there is still hope.
Thank you. It's a beautiful question. I would say your game is also fixed. The grace of our parampara is such, and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur really makes this point. Like once you're in bhakti, then you're within the purview of the internal energy, and there's no influence of Maya anymore. There's just your willingness to continue to align with the internal energy. So we still have some unwillingness for that alignment. We have some, and these stereotypes about what that alignment will look like get in our way. There's no way I'm aligned and Krishna sends this challenge to me, right? We think those two things don't work, that something goes wrong in my life and I'm aligned with Krishna. But when we read the Bhagavatam, we see things are going wrong for people like Bali Maharaj and Prahlad and Dhruva and Lord Brahma. So if things are going wrong for them, it doesn't necessarily mean that when things go wrong for me, I'm unloved, I'm left outside, I've messed up, I've made some mistake. So that's one point, is to not give unnecessary energy towards that shame and guilt that is all too easy to come in. Bad things happen to good people all the time. Prabhupada, as we mentioned at the beginning, he didn't know whether he would finish even the second canto, what to speak of make it to the 10th canto. So he's so grateful to be writing this fourth canto. And he's doing so a year and a half after having a stroke that paralyzed him from the neck down. This is a pure devotee. Unquestionable. Mahabhagavat, paralyzed from the neck down, laying in some hospital in New York City. So now, when something like that happens to us, we start thinking, what did I do wrong? Who did I offend? How did I end up needing to be punished like this? But that itself is a bit of a waste of energy. To be able to understand all of that is impossible. And it might be based on a wrong premise altogether. The question really is, okay, now that I'm here, what can I do from here? How can I grow? How can I continue from here? That's the productive question. Otherwise, the Lord Parshuram is told by his father after he kills everybody. He says, actually, my dear son, the real quality of a Brahmana is forgiveness. This whole killing thing is not exactly how you go about being a Brahmana. Shamaya, he uses the word. So our acharyas give a purport there, and in other places, that the reason Brahmanas are forgiving is because the Brahmanas know best of all that nobody knows what's going on. Now that's very different from what we normally hear, that the Brahmanas, they're the via medium from God to us, and they know the Shastra, and they know the mantras, and they know the tantras, and they know what's going on. But the more you know what's going on, the more you realize, I don't know what's going on. The Lord is an inconceivable actor with inconceivable plans, and I can only remain willing to adjust. Remain willing to adjust. So that's our useful expending of energy. So that's one part of a reflection to your question, how to remain hopeful. And then you used another word, how to always keep this vision. And I would say that standard is an impossible one for you. So don't hold yourself to it. Right now, you don't have the capacity for always. And in this mood of always, all the time, we miss out on giving appropriate energy to when we could actually be focused on Krishna. And Sri Vishwanath in Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki, this famous verse, always serving the Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, always. Our Acharya gives some space. He says, always means once a day. Always means always be clean. Does that never leave the shower? Of course not. Always be clean because you have to go out and get dirty. There are going to be natural periods of life, not in your day, in your week, in your month, in the cycles of your life. There's natural periods where you're going to be less focused on Krishna. And a mature sadhaka understands, I always have to maintain periods where I can give that intense focus. And this is why sadhana becomes a hallmark. Our Sachi Sudha Prabhu is here, and I remember living at the temple in Detroit and realizing he's more of a full-time devotee than I am a full-time devotee. I was saying, I'm living in the temple, I'm doing all this service. But by his example, I was realizing I do less than he does actually, because he's got this job and he flies here and there, and he's got this family to take care of, and his daughters and college and high. It's like, wow. But still, so much dedication to come to the temple also. But I was hearing from him and understanding he spends serious time on his sadhana, which at that time I wasn't doing so much. I chant and, you do your 16 rounds, but like walking around looking for other things to do. I wasn't sitting and hearing the name for 2 hours a day. And I realized that those who do that, they're actually the full-time devotees, because they are giving themselves a space in which they saturate with an experience of Krishna that's deep, that's profound, that's memorable. And then the rest of their day, their whole experience is colored by that. It's not that your experience of Krishna in japa should be the same as when you're at work or playing with your children. That's naive. That's an impossible standard. You'll hate your children and you'll not pay attention to your japa because you're all the time trying to always think of Krishna, and your capacity to do so becomes exhausted. You become frustrated, you feel guilty, and so then you never think of Krishna in a meaningful way. So the two sides of the answer I'm offering: one, don't stereotype the way grace may come, because it comes in awkward ways also. And so don't get discouraged when life gets hard. It doesn't mean you're wrong and bad. It means Krishna wants your attention and he's calling to you somehow. Like boys that like to flirt with girls, but they don't know how, they'll like poke them and pull their hair and shoot spitballs at them. So Krishna is in this way. He's lovingly catching your attention, albeit by pulling your hair sometimes. On the other side, give yourself focused periods of really connecting with Krishna and allow those to be the moments where you really give it your all. And then accept, okay, I've worked those muscles out and now I go out through my life and I hope that vibration remains flowing through me. But I'm not naive to think that while I'm at work or sitting in traffic, I'm going to have the same consciousness that I do when I can be directly in front of Radha Gopijana Vallabha. Maybe one more reflection or question, and then we'll close. Yes, Prabhu.
In the life of Prabhupada, when we read the life is full of suffering. Even I heard that Prabhupada's one son was Maya, and he had some mental issues. He was looking from Prabhupada. That kind of father is never to everybody. Not to all the situations.
Right.
But when we see one side of material, their instrument, they are like
yes.
The second thing, they are still suffering. So what should be our perspective to people?
A beautiful question. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada is the superhero now. That's how we think of him. We look at those last 10 years. That's Prabhupada. But the brilliance of Lilamrita, I'm so glad you brought out Lilamrita. Satsvarup Maharaj did such hard work. And his disciple Baladev Prabhu, who I've met, they live in New York now. Baladev Prabhu, Satsvarup Maharaj, a few other devotees, they researched what was Prabhupada's life like. What did he go through? And we find out that it's like a pharmacist over at CVS becomes the Jagat Guru. Imagine, you're going to fill some prescription, you have some earache or something, and the guy that gives you the medicine, 20 years later, you find out he's Krishna's pure devotee who's spreading the holy name all over the planet. Unbelievable. So there's this way we make Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Lord Brahma and Prahlad, we actually have this tendency to dehumanize them, to make them not people, but these kind of characters in the narrative, the story of what we want the world to be. And the reason is because at the heart of our Krishna conscious practice, we want to be relieved of suffering. We want liberation, the tigress of liberation. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta uses this in some poetry in Markandeya Bhagavad Dharma, and he's referencing Raghunath Das Goswami, the tigress of liberation. A tiger, you don't know they're there until you're done. They've been watching you, but you're not watching them until it's too late. So this subtle underlying seed that I want to not suffer anymore causes us to see Srila Prabhupada and block out. He's not suffering. He's not going through anxiety, because how can somebody pure experience that? I don't want to think that when I'm pure, I'll still have to be experiencing anxiety. I'll still have to suffer. Now, their suffering is on a different layer. Their sense of suffering is in relationship to Krishna, which is inconceivable, but it's there. He gets gored by a bull. He's in the hospital. His wife's disagreeing. His children are giving him a hard time. His business is failing. He's in anxiety. Same as we are. So our anxiety, and there's in the first canto, chapter 12, what is that text? I think it's text 12. Prabhupada says, it is not a question of removing anxiety, but transferring anxiety. And this is, I'm glad you picked up on this, because this is where we tried to highlight this at the beginning in Prabhupada's purport about Lord Brahma's attempts. That it's not that as I advance, life becomes somehow this like magic fairyland of ease and benevolence. Quite the opposite. In some ways, the hardest things will come the more advanced we become. Arjuna's on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. That's the hardest moment of his life. It took every ounce of faith he has in his friend Krishna to let go of his stereotyped idea of what it means to serve Krishna. What it means to serve Krishna for all of Arjuna's life was to be a pious member of the Kuru family. And now Krishna is saying, I don't want that seva anymore. Now I want you to aim bows and arrows at those same people. And Arjuna's mind is blown. No, this is not dharma. This is not religion. This is not bhakti. But now I want you to aim arrows at those same people whose feet you were touching. It breaks the stereotype. So allowing ourselves, you asked how to see Srila Prabhupada. See him as a person with all of the texture that being a person comes with. When he says, I did not know whether to turn left or right, don't think that he was saying that to make you feel better, that you get confused sometimes. The pure devotee and his leela, we have this word leela that we just use to kind of whitewash the fact that life remains anxious. Even in the state of pure Krishna consciousness, the only difference is our sense of why we're anxious is not for our own pleasure and safety, it's for Krishna's pleasure. It's for Guru and Gauranga's safety, the pushing on of the parampara. But we remain anxious, we remain confused, we remain uncertain, but not for our own sake, for their sake. So when you get clear with that for yourself, that you have this tendency towards liberation, and therefore you have a tendency to kind of whitewash the whole culture of Krishna consciousness as this easy, like prema robot community, and nobody has any frustrations or hardships, and everyone's just carrying out the certainty of love in the spiritual world. Don't give in to that. Instead, let it be challenging, let it be textured, let it be nuanced. And that's when we open, that's rasa. Therein lies taste. Rupa Goswami, we'll stop here. Forgive me, I went a little over with this question. The taste of the holy name on the tongue is different elements. We say nectar, but then Rupa Goswami, he gives one description. It's like condensed milk with camphor and cardamom. Now, cardamom, when you taste it on the tongue, how does it feel? Just straight on the tongue. It's like eating soap, like bitter and tingly and like not very pleasant. Certainly not sweet. Some weird people might like it, but you get a cardamom pod in the rice and you bite down. But when the sweetness of the kheer is mixed with that camphor, which is also a similarly bitter kind of aromatic, and cardamom, now suddenly the sweetness has been intensified by the bitterness. Those contrasting flavors come together to create this textured experience, this nuance, that the holy name just becomes, I want more and more and more. You know, that cup of sweet rice that you just can keep eating, never stop. But it's not, if it was just sickly, just sugar and milk, it's like, okay, a little sweet, that's nice, but I can't eat 3 cups of it. But when that little bit of camphor, that little bit of bitter, that little bit of challenge, tension comes, I could do this forever. We'll stop there. Yeah. It's our collective concept. It's like religious idea. It's all going to be easy. once we become Krishna conscious. If you read the Bhagavatam, it only gets harder. The more Krishna conscious, Vish Amrit, poison nectar, it only becomes more difficult. Prem, what is that? Charvana, Tapta, Tripta. Dui Prema Ashvadan Tapta Tripta Charvana. That the taste of prema, Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj is saying, the Ashvadan, the taste of prema is like tapta, burning gore, molten gore. So sweet, so so delicious, but burns. Oh, I can't eat it, but I can't stop eating it. It hurts, but it feels so good. This is the taste of prema. This is what we're signing up for. Some of you guys know Jai Jagannath Prabhu, and he said the first time he read CC, he said, okay, I have to put this down. I can't read this right now, because he saw Mahaprabhu he goes from Nimai Pandit to Bhakta Nimai, and now life becomes very hard. Now there's crying and frustration and throwing himself on the ground, and everyone starts giving him up and criticizing him. Life just becomes hard. What to speak of later on in Jagannath Puri, his blood is coming from his pores. His body is melting. He's becoming fat and swollen. He's passing out and drowning. Life becomes hard as we become advanced. So we have to be sober to that. We have to be ready for that. Vishwanath Chakravarti in Madhurya Kandambini says, somebody who is on a sakti, seventh layer of almost to prem, they'll be considered crazy by normal devotees. Criticized, outcast. When you become advanced, because you don't act normal anymore. You don't act like everybody else acts who's following the prema robot program. Now you're actually coming close to prema, and the spontaneous experience of the profundity of God is starting to mess up your neat and tidy little understanding of religiosity and is disturbing the group. And so they say, we need you to leave. So, Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Brahmaji ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Prem Anandi, Haribo, Vanchakapatapishcha, Kripa Sindhu Vyacha, Patitanam Bhavanebhyo. Gaura.